Hey, Carolyn here, and I am going to start a series of videos on how you can transform your life and gain financial freedom. And I will do this through a book, Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill. This book was written in 1937, so the stories and everything from the book is based on that time frame. So don't mind any of that because all the materials in that book is as relevant today as it was when it was written. And so the book, Think and Grow Rich, is based on the premise that thoughts are things, that what you think about in your life eventually becomes your belief, and what you believe um, drive what you experience. And so the premise is based on that, like thoughts are things. So if you know that, then if you can take control of your mind and learn to only allow thoughts into your mind based on what you want to experience, you can truly transform your life and in turn create financial freedom for yourself. I have a couple of stories that I want to share with you from the book in chapter one. So this video is based on chapter one. A couple of stories I want to share with you from the book, and I also want to give you a little brief story about how I use these principles to change my life. Um, and then I'll let you know what principle is at operation in this chapter. The first story is about a man that had limited means, had a nominal job, didn't make that much money, but he did have a desire to work with the inventor Thomas Edison. He said that he wanted to partner with Thomas Edison, so he was willing and ready to do anything to get that job. Now, to get that business partnership, I should say. He was not in the same town as Edison, so he had to get transportation there. And Dr. Hill said that he went to Edison, New Jersey, where Thomas was, and he rode on a freight train. He did not have the money to go on a passenger train. He caught a ride on a freight train. So when he got to Mr. Edison, he was all disheveled and his clothes looked unkempt, but that didn't stop him. He went to Edison and talked to him about becoming a business partner with him. Edison looked at the guy and said, I mean, his clothes was disheveled and everything, but Edison did not dismiss him because he saw something in him. He said the guy had that passion in his eyes and his voice when he was speaking about what his desire was, that he listened. He gave him he said, let me see what he's going to say, because he was actually caught by his determination. And so he gave him a job in his organization. It wasn't anything that was important to the organization, still was a menial job, but he did not, and this he being Mr. Barnes, he did not let that deter him. He knew that he wanted to be have a partnership with Mr. Edison, and he had a job with him. So now he's got a foot in the door. So then what he did was he worked for him for some years, and I think it was quite a number, like 5 or so years. And he kept his eyes open and always was looking for an opportunity to advance himself in the organization. And he finally found one. Mr. Edison had created this machine, a dictatograph or something like that, machine that allowed the spoken, like you can speak in it. I think they call it a dictatograph or dictatorgram, whatever. It was that kind of machine that you can speak in back in those days, and it repeated your voice, which was revolutionary, really. Well, anyway, he created this machine, and he had his salespeople trying to sell it, and they were not doing a good job because they didn't really see the reason why somebody would want a machine like that. Why would somebody want to have a machine talk for them? So they didn't do a good job because of what they were believing. But Mr. Barnes, he saw an opportunity, and he said to Miss Anderson, I can sell this machine for you. I know I can do it. I can sell it for you. And he proceeded to do exactly that. He was like a selling machine. He sold so many of that machine. He made millions off that opportunity, thereby becoming a partner with Mr. Edison, because Mr. Edison said, okay, it's all yours, go and sell it. And he did that and made millions and became a partner with Mr. Edison as he had desired. There's another story in there, and this young man came from a family of means. He his uncle, one of his uncle, caught gold fever when they were digging for gold in the West, and they were living on the East Coast. and they wanted to go. He wanted to go and stake a claim and dig for gold, right? So this young man, Mr. Darby, went with his uncle, and they went over to Colorado, and they got the rights to some land, and they started digging for gold. And you know what? They found it. So they quietly leave their space, went back home, and got financing to do the work. Well, young Mr. Darby was instrumental in getting the financing. He talked to his family and friends in the town, and they all put money up, banking on getting a large return based on the gold that they were going to dig. So they went back there with the equipment that they needed and the crew, and they started digging for gold, and they found it. And they got a whole truckload. They were quite excited. You know, we've got the gold. A couple more truckload or cartload, whatever it was that you pull it out of the mine with. A couple more of these, and we'll have paid off the debt, and everything else will be pure profit. But then they continue to dig and dig, and then it stopped. And they continue to dig, and they dig, and they dig, and they dig, and they still couldn't find any. So the older Mr. Darby, the uncle, said, you know what? Let's just throw in the towels. We can't find it. We've gotten all that we can out of this mine. So what he did was he sold the equipment and the rights to some guy that was that buy used equipment from people. And this guy, he was a thinking man. What he did was he said, you know what? I'm going to see if there's really no gold there. He had equipment and land. So he hired an engineer, a professional. He didn't know how to determine whether the gold was there and why it stopped, but he knew enough to hire someone that could help him out. So he hired an engineer to look at the land to see why the gold stopped. And the engineer found that it was a fault line there, and where Mr. Darby and those were digging was in the area where the fault had separated the land below. And the engineer predicted that if you go about 3 feet further in the same direction that the Darbys were going in, the gold will continue. And you know, the guy went and dug that in that direction, and he got the gold. He made millions of dollars from those gold. Mr. Darby had stopped 3 feet from his prosperity. So Mr. Darby changed his profession. Then he went into selling insurance policies. But fate had not been finished with him yet. He was in with his uncle at a mill. His uncle had a farm, and during those days, they used to have people working on the farm that they call sharecropper. People would work for, would farm the land, a parcel of the owner's land, and then give them a portion of the harvest for the crop that they create grow on the land. So one family, this family sent a little girl to Mr. Darby, the uncle, to ask for 50 cents. And so the girl came in there and said, my mama needed 50 cents. And Mr. Darby said, I don't have 50 cents, go away. And the little girl said yes, but she didn't move. And then Mr. Darby continued working in the mill, doing whatever chores he were doing. And then he looked around and he saw that the girl was still there. And he said, didn't I tell you to leave? What are you still doing here? Leave. And the girl said yes, but she didn't leave. So Mr. Darby started walking towards her. I don't know what he was going to do, probably physical harm or whatever, throw her out of there, bodily, whatever. He started walking towards her, and she did not move. And then as Mr. Darby got closer to her, she took one step forward and looked up directly in his eyes and said, my mom got to have that 50 cents, and said it with determination and passion and did not move, held her ground. And Mr. Darby was shocked, flabbergasted, went in his pocket, got 50 cents out and gave it to the girl. And the girl just quietly slid away. And so both of the Darbys just sat down and said, thinking, what happened there? And so the young Mr. Darby later on told Dr. Hill that was another thing that really determined that drive his passion and his determination to succeed in his new business that he was in, which is insurance. Because he looked back on how he had stopped digging just 3 feet from gold, and now this little girl this was in the South, by the way, or just south, just north of the Dixie, but still near southern U.S. And back in that time, this was a black girl sharecropping on a white person farm. So this little black girl, which was unheard of at that time, standing up to this man saying, I need to have 50 cents. She was risking life and limb to do that, but she was determined. She knew that her mother needed that money, and she was not going to leave until she get it. And so young Mr. Darby saw that and thought, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to, before I did some quit, and this time I'm going to stick to it and do what this child did to reach my goal. And he used that in his insurance business and became quite successful. In fact, he was one of the top, in the top, I don't know, close to the top 500 or so, whatever, salespeople in insurance during that time, because he used that and he never forgot that he stopped 3 feet before reaching his goal. And now he's going to stick to it until he reaches it every time with determination and passion. And how did I use this in my life? I came from a family that didn't have much money. We did have, I was in a farming community, so we had farming, and so we had foods and stuff like that, but we didn't really have any money for non-essentials. And so I didn't really like that, because I looked around and see what other people were doing and had. And not that I was coveting what they had, but I just didn't like living like that. And now just think about it. I'm a small person thinking this. I'm not even working or anything, but I just know I did not like that. And so I would read books and go to places in the books in my mind and my imagination. So I would read these stories, and they were bountiful stories with luxuries and all that stuff. And I would go there in my mind. And as I got older, not only did I go where these stories were taking me in my mind, but then I started reminiscing in my mind, or plotting, so to speak, in my mind, how can I get out of here? So I was always asking my question, what am I going to do? How am I going to go? We didn't have any money, so I had to find a way to get out of there, and I used education to get out of there. So I went to college, and then went to work in corporations and so on. But that was my way to get out of there, because I knew right then that I was not going to do that. That was not what I was meant to be. And so I left that behind. So now, the principle that was used in this first chapter was creating a goal, deciding clearly what you need, what your goal is, and keeping it in your mind and working towards it until it happens. So I say to you that if you have not created a goal in your life, you need to figure out, what do I want? What is it that I desire? And get clear on that. And keep it in your mind and think about it a lot. Try to come up with some plans. And if you really don't know how far you want to go with that, how far in the future you want to go with that, don't worry about it. I mean, even if you have to do it for like a year or some months, that's fine. At least that's a start of creating an idea of what you want. And then go after it. And make sure that you have a big why. Why are you going after it? It has to be something so strong that you will not stop at all. Think about that little child back in the day, risking life and limb to get that 50 cents, but she knew she needed that money for her mother. So you can do the same thing. So if you need to join a team to start this process, you can click the link below. I am on the prosperity team, and on that team we have mindset calls, we have personal development. We're working through a system where you can get in for $25, and you have a lot of personal development in there. And we have a daily action conference webinar where you can come on with a daily action plan, and it outlines how you can get started if you haven't started yet, or how you can get on purpose if you have started and you just need some kind of guidance in how to do this. So click the link below, please join with me, and I will see you on the next video.